Finally, the Star Wars franchise is launching a live-action series. This is something that is long overdue. Star Wars movies lately have been kind of hit or miss. It's hard to make lightning strike in the same place more than once, as it did when Star Wars was born. However, with a long-running series, you have an opportunity for long-term world-building, character development, and deep storytelling, something that has been really missing from the Star Wars franchise recently. But I digress a little. This channel is about spaceships, and no doubt that a character with the badass weapons, helmet, armor, and moves would also have a badass ship. So far, we don't really know a lot about the Razorcrest, which is a gunship comparable in size to the other famous bounty hunter ship, the Slave One. Now, Slave One was a Swiss army knife of weapons and equipment, all very practical in the bounty hunter trade. The Razorcrest probably has a similar loadout of gear. Let's use some logic to nail down the Razorcrest's abilities and predict what this ship might be able to do. The first thing we have to talk about is its size. It's certainly not a fighter like an X-Wing. The Razorcrest has a spacious cockpit with a co-pilot seat. It's big enough to stand up in. It has a large walk-in ramp, and the hull below the engines is girthy enough to hold some cargo. Almost certainly a small detention cell, and maybe a speeder bike. We'll see about that. The engines on this thing are massive. They look much like turbofan jets on aircraft. In Star Wars, you sometimes see this for ships meant to fly in an atmosphere. I speculate that these are an atmospheric and space ion engine hybrid, designed to work in either space or an atmosphere. Its ability to perform better in one over the other is unknown though. But due to the size of these engines, we can deduce that it probably is a very fast ship. Better to run down your marks. As far as the armament goes, there are only two weapons that we can see. There are two really large cannons near the cockpit, which seem to be more or less fixed forward. That doesn't mean that there aren't other hidden weapons though. For example, Boba Fett's ship Slave One also has two visible weapons, but we saw it use a whole lot more than these two turbo lasers, including a gimbaled laser turret, missile launchers, and sonic charge racks. I'm sure the Razorcrest has some hidden weaponry unless this Mandalorian is kind of a noob and hasn't fully kitted out his ship. More on that in a minute. But these two forward-facing guns are big enough to be some kind of hard-hitting turbo laser or possibly ion cannons, which can disable enemy ships, quite useful for bounty hunting. And for seizing enemy ships, it most likely has some kind of tractor beam as well. Now, where did this ship come from? What's its origins? Is it Corellian? Truly Mandalorian? What? Well, first let me say that Slave One was more of a prototype, not a common ship that Jango Fett managed to get his hands on. It isn't Mandalorian in origin. Most bounty hunters will use whatever ship is practical and most useful that they can get their hands on in spite of the origin. But some thousands of years before the era of today's Star Wars, the Mandalorians were a galactic force to be reckoned with and had a fleshed out battle fleet. But since that time, the Mandalorians had not quite had a unified fleet doctrine of any kind. The closest to anything Mandalorian is the space manufacturer Mandel Motors, which builds a number of ships out of Mandalore. Most of their ships are popularly used by independents and the criminal underworld, and mercenaries and bounty hunters, but not by any major space empire. The Razorcrest cockpit and gun arrangement does remind me of the Star Viper, a fighter also manufactured by Mandel Motors and used by independents or the criminal underworld. So it is very possible that the Razorcrest is a Mandel Motors design. It certainly fits the profile. Another possibility, which might disappoint many of you, but something I think would be really great story-wise, is the Razorcrest is a lemon, an old piece of junk, prone to breakdowns and problems. Maybe the main character is kind of just getting started in bounty hunting and he really needed a ship fast, so this was the one he got. It could even be an heirloom or a hand-me-down from some Mandalorian ancestors. But over time, like a fine wine, the Razorcrest is broken in and upgraded. But this is pretty unlikely. I'm probably wrong about this. This doesn't look like a scrappy Millennium Falcon or anything. In fact, it looks cleaner than even the Slave One. It's more likely that it's a new top-of-the-line gunship. We'll see. Brief channel update. I am still doing 3D modeling, but learning some new software, as you can see here. Let me know in the comments if you know what ship this is. But special thanks to Matt Donnie for his fan art images of the Razorcrest. You can find more of his artwork on DeviantArt under the name Raven Deviant, which will be included in a link in the description below. Please subscribe, link, and share, and until next time, space friends,